James, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. You disappointed or delighted that we're not leaving today?
Personally, I'm delighted this morning. And just for the record, I did vote leave, and I am a Remainer now. So anyone can have that argument.
Shouldn't you spare a thought then for someone like Glenn and recognise that Glenn is really disappointed? And shouldn't you be a little kinder to Glenn and people like him rather than being delighted?
Well, I think you need to look at the bigger picture, and as you were just pointing out, the reality of leaving the European Union is not anything like the fantasy that was sold to us in 2016.
Well, you don't know individual reasons for why they voted to leave the European Union, so you can't make that statement.
Well, I can from my personal point, because I voted leave on the basis that I didn't want further political integration within the European Union, but I was happy with the status quo at the time. Obviously, and all the promises that were given during that period of time, that we'd be staying in the customs union. Of course, we're the biggest trading partner with the EU. You look at, say, Japan. They see us as the gateway to Europe, or did see us as the gateway to Europe. And what's happened? Half of the Japanese companies have pulled out of the UK. We're losing.
Where do you get that figure
money.
of half? Where do you get that figure of half the Japanese companies have pulled out of the UK?
Well, Sony have gone, Panasonic have gone. Nissan are reducing what they're doing in Sunderland because it's not profitable. If we are putting our own trade barriers up between ourselves and the EU, we are making ourselves not competitive for parts and whatever needs to come across. What I just learned recently is I'm a filmmaker, so sometimes I have to go to the EU and maybe to film something. I've now recently discovered that if we do Brexit, and especially under no deal, I will need a carnet for my laptop, my camera.
Sorry, you'll need a what?
And a carnet.
What's that?
A carnet is a document you have to get through your equipment through customs. And speaking from experience, I've just done a documentary which has travelled around the world. I've been to China, I've been to Japan, I've been to the US. It costs a lot of money. So every trip you do, it would cost me £300-400 to organise this carnet, and you can't just do it just like that in an instant. It takes 3 or 4 days. And the reality is that I've now learned that if we go, especially with a no deal, that will apply.
Well, but yeah,
and that would mean my
deal,
business is gone.
No deal surely is now off the table, because as we head into this general election, then I guess there will be the chance of either Boris Johnson getting his form of Brexit through with a Conservative majority, or a hung parliament that may well be able to orchestrate a second referendum. So no deal has gone as a threat, hasn't it? I mean, I guess there's also the Brexit Party. If the Brexit Party did have success, they might have some leverage there. But at the moment, they seem to be very quiet, so we're not quite sure what's going on there. But let's assume no deal's off the table. I mean, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Well, I think you still have to worry about that, because Boris Johnson has proven not to be trustworthy on the promises he's made.
Well, his hands were tied behind his back by parliamentarians who wanted to stop him. That's what many people listening to this programme will say.
Well, I think that's a good thing, because we've got to take stock, look at the situation, and really look at ourselves in the mirror and going, do we really want to limit ourselves in this world with our nearest and dearest neighbours across intercontinental Europe, who are our biggest trading partners? You look at all the figures. The EU is our biggest, largest contributor for our GDP.
Just very briefly, because I've only got 30 seconds left. Yes or no? Do you want to Brexit or not?
I do not want Brexit.
Okay. Well, how do you square that then democratically? Because so many people, in good faith, voted in 2016, and they've already made the decision that we're leaving. So who are you or anyone else to turn around to those people and say you're going to try and find some way of counteracting their decision?
Well, I'll say this. The parameters have changed since 2016. We now know the reality of that vote. We didn't know that in 2016 because, as you say, everybody had a different version of what Brexit meant. We now have a much clearer idea, and in my opinion, a confirmatory referendum with an option to remain is a logical choice.
Okay, James, we must leave it there because we're out of time, but thank you so much.